Chapter 3. Ulysses' Home. Jim Garfield and Tiffany Ankles sat at Chubby's diner where they both finished off their big donkey breakfast. Chubby's was sired by General Eateries, a restaurant conglomerate that had marketed every conceivable cuisine in its own indelible manner. As if the same sanitized and boiling MSG thumb had been stuck in their proprietary miso, their proprietary chitlins, their proprietary chili, their proprietary chowder, and their proprietary grits. Chubby's was part of the healthful eating backlash. We use genuine lard and real butter was displayed on table tents, wall signs, and menus. Houston had been selected as a test store because it had the right mix of whites, blacks, and Mexicans. The big donkey breakfast had originally been called the fat ass breakfast until focus groups revealed that some people found the word ass unappetizing, even when the menu description superimposed a picture of a donkey. Tiffany referenced her own expanding backside, and she also worked water retention, sore feet, and stretch marks into the conversation. Jim was reminded of the first dirty joke he ever heard. Why did God give women vaginas? So men would talk to them. That joke did not make sense at age 7, but now, as his breakfast companion yammered on about the growth rate of her toenails, her changing body odor, and the changing flow, color, and smell of her urine, Jim understood the joke all too well. Suddenly his cell rang. Give me 3 steps, the ringtone he had selected for Ulysses. Hello, he muttered into his phone equipped with Clint Eastwood emulator. Dig it, Barry White croaked back. Ulysses was a few blocks away, and they quickly reviewed their rendezvous. They had both checked novid.com to locate surveillance dead spots not far from Chubby's diner. The plan was for Ulysses to enter the subdivision from one entrance, and Jim and Tiffany would enter from another. They would cross paths on a nondescript residential street, and Ulysses would stop his Mercedes. Tiffany would turn around in the next driveway and pull in behind Ulysses. Jim would emerge from the SUV on the passenger side wearing sunglasses and a Houston Cougars cap, and would calmly enter the Mercedes on the passenger side. The transfer went as smooth as an Apollo landing, and soon Jim and Ulysses were making small talk. The Mercedes featured a swivel seat that allowed Jim to face the driver as he chatted. Ulysses rarely looked at the road when he drove, but it didn't much matter because soon they were stuck in a bumper-to-bumper logjam. The conversation was a minefield, and both parties knew it. Jim suspected that Ulysses was trying to recruit him, and he was also trying to ascertain professional details about Ray and David, Hunter Duncan, and other people they knew personally. But maybe he wasn't trying to recruit him or anything other than a conspiracy rap. Ulysses was treading carefully, trying to get information without revealing much himself. The circumspection could be viewed favorably that he had his mania under control, but that did not rule out the possibility that he was wearing a wire. Ulysses was still a lawman after all. Jim almost felt more comfortable with Ulysses the blabbermouth. If I might ask, Jim, what do you do for a living? I play poker, Jim responded, trying not to sound overly ready for the question. The truth was he earned a low 6-figure salary by bankrolling a half-dozen college students who played online at different sites for a 30% commission. How well that pay? Jim jumped on the opportunity. Not well enough to feed the world. I don't mind helping you out after all you've done for me, but my old lady's going to squirt one out in the winter, and I have been feeding your son ever since you went AWOL. Ulysses nodded and then responded, Jim, I would love to return the favor. Believe me, I learned a lot when I was locked away. A lot. I had time to think. The new paradigm is that people can do everything by proxy. Not true, Jim. Too many miscommunications. You have to be able to do face to face sometime. But you can only do that with solid people. Jim nodded at what he thought was a compliment as his heart shifted into second gear. He detected a classic trap, an indirect method of revelation. The inmate who won't tell the authorities his dog's name is approached by a fellow con who is in the same line of work. The other con starts talking shop, and the inmate chimes in and tells his life story. Ulysses is setting a trap. I heard Duncan hit the lottery. Jim nodded. Some cons hit it big by buying lottery tickets wholesale. I'm not saying our friend did anything like that, but criminals are disproportionately represented among lottery winners. Jim let out a breath. What did he know, and how did he know it? Duncan was always a lucky bastard. Too bad his son didn't inherit his father's luck. Jim felt his heart climb into third gear. How does Ulysses know about Delbert Wayne? Does he know what else Duncan has been up to? Is that why Ulysses has risen from the dead? I'm hoping Delbert Wayne can beat his charges. He has a damn good lawyer, Jim said stoically. Those drug lawyers can get expensive, even for a lottery winner. Have you talked to Duncan since your return? Not yet, but I suppose I should offer him moral support during this troubling time. He would appreciate it. What does Ray do for work? He's a mechanic specializing in BMW motorcycles. He has a very upscale clientele. Ulysses nodded and paused before continuing. Listen, Jim, the news people have downplayed the damage of the biotax on Houston. Currently, there's no functional federal, state, or local narcotics squad anywhere in Harris County. Same with Vice. Every Fed and every Ranger and every local yokel is investigating the biotax. This is a golden opportunity. There won't be no narco squad or Vice squad until the buildings are certifiably decontaminated. When that happens, those squads will be headed up by people I know personally. Jim Garfield searched for the right words. He could not reveal that his income was now in the mid-seven figures and rising, that he did not need any more help from his former community supervisor. He couldn't insult Ulysses by rejecting him outright because he didn't need him or because he thought he was crazy or otherwise untrustworthy. And if his conversation was being taped, he did not want to alert the eavesdroppers that he was suspicious. He stared out the windshield at the now creeping traffic and turned back to Ulysses. You never did any time, Ulysses. I have. We joke about it, and as prison goes, I had a great experience. I lived in relative luxury. I met great people. I learned more in my first 6 months than I learned my whole life. I wouldn't trade those 6 months for anything. But then you blink and 6 months becomes 18 months and your mind starts to play tricks on you. Yes, it was good for a while, but I don't want to go back. Not for all the money in the world. Ulysses narrowed his eyes. You a smart guy, Jim, but you ain't no poker player. Jim Garfield felt cornered. I'm glad it's just you and me, Chief. Because if you called me a liar in front of someone else, my honor would be violated. It's just you and me. That's so we can show our cards, so to speak, Ulysses stated with venomous sarcasm. Let me remind you that you are no longer my community supervisor. Oh, such gratitude after I helped launch your career. Jim Garfield did not like the last sentence because it could be incriminating. The impulse was to remind Ulysses who had paid for the Mercedes they were riding in and who paid for the roof over the head of Brecker Jones. But there was no need to alert possible eavesdroppers that he did indeed have deep pockets, and Ulysses had indeed launched his career. One more time, I'm a professional poker player. My tax records reflect that status. Ulysses stared at the road ahead, then smiled and turned back to Jim Garfield. Okay, Slim, I didn't want to make you my old friend mad. Okay, Slim, I didn't want to make my old friend mad. Shit, let's party. Ulysses turned up the volume to a not unreasonable level, and Barry White poured from the speakers. Hey, you want to see my house? Ulysses paused before continuing. You thought I was going to say crib, didn't you? Jim Garfield rarely laughed, but he did chuckle at this comment. See, I get you giggling along like a schoolgirl. Check it out. Aerial view. On the small in-dash screen, there appeared a video feed from a miniature drone circling 300 feet above Ulysses' apartment. Both men studied the feed, and they both noticed the activity at about the same time. 3 squad cars and 2 unmarked police cars parked outside of Ulysses' apartment. Ulysses zoomed the camera in with the controls on his cell as he maneuvered the Mercedes through non-flowing traffic. Focusing on the front entrance of his apartment, both men observed detectives removing boxes from the premises. Holy shit, Ulysses muttered resignedly. Looks like my brother tracked me down.